The dry and windy season, also known as the Harmattan period, is here. The Harmattan haze with extremely dry, dusty wind blows from the Sahara towards the western coast of Africa in Nigeria. The season usually intensifies from November throughout March, with intending consequences. One of such is increased fire outbreaks, as a dry wind makes it easier for fire to spread at the slightest ignition. Incidents have claimed many lives and properties worth billions of naira. Giving account of fire outbreaks across the country in 2021, the Federal Fire Service says 70 deaths were recorded in 2021 and about 19.4 trillion naira worth of property destroyed, with the Harmattan gearing up. Experts call for increased sensitization on precautionary measures to prevent fire outbreaks. Nigeria Today will focus on fire prevention during the Harmattan. I am Eukaria Clinton. Welcome to the program. With me to discuss safety measures against fire outbreaks is the Assistant Controller of Fire and National Public Relations Officer, Federal Fire Service, Paul Abraham. Nice to have you on the program.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'll just start immediately. We've had reports of fire outbreak. The Harmattan is here, just like I said during the introduction, and we have lots of reports about fire incidents, fire outbreaks in the past. You know, I kind of wonder, what are the likely causes of the fire outbreak, especially during the Harmattan?
Okay, thank you very much, Ikea, for that question. First and foremost, let me state very clearly that from our data repository center at the Federal Fire Service, we have overwhelming evidence that more than 80% of the fire incidents in Nigeria are avoidable. You know, human factors, carelessness, lack of care, you know, as the case may be, more than 80% of our fire incident. What that translates to for us is that if people take more care, these fire outbreaks are avoidable. And for the Harmattan season, like you rightly introduced, it's for us, it's our peak period. Peak period because the weather is hot, the wind is everywhere, and then everywhere is dry. Okay, for a professional, for an expert in firefighting, the fire triangle is complete. Wind, which is oxygen, heat, which is the dry nature of the environment, and then the dry environment, which is fuel. When put together, fire is inevitable. The fire triangle consists of fuel, heat, and oxygen. When these three components or elements come together, just expect fire, as the case may be. And this is a period where you have all three elements ready to come together. You get what I'm saying? So, what are the likely causes? Because you have a lot of heat and a lot of fuel because of the dry nature of the environment, you know, and all of that. If we bring it back home to our immediate environment, everything is waiting to ignite. So if you leave your electric appliances on into the night, or when you're not using them unattended, you are providing one of those elements that can be resultant, you know, into the fire outbreak. If you have cooking ongoing and it's unattended, bush burning, you know, some people go out gaming at this time of the year, especially in Nigeria. Fire is waiting to happen. So uncontrolled bush burning, you know. So these and many more are some of the causes of fire incident about this time.
Okay. Now, you talked about some of the likely causes of the fire incidents. Now, is there a particular time of the day, like we're in the Harmattan, is there a particular time of the day that one should be very more careful, you know?
For the Harmattan season, somebody or people should be careful at whatever time of the day, whether it's at night or during the day. Now, one of the characteristics or features of the Harmattan season, you will agree with me, it's hot during the day and it's cold at night. Okay? In some part of the country where the weather is extremely cold, people try to warm up their rooms. They can either use stove or coal or some form of ignition. Now, when that happens and people are in bed, it can trigger into a full-blown fire. We've had such incident in Plateau, Taraba, and the likes. You get what I'm saying? Because they are in bed and they're trying to keep the room warm. Now, during the day, because the heat is extremely high and is quite sunny, some people have their gas cylinders under the sun. In an attempt to take it out of the kitchen, they still put it under the sun. That is also not going to help. So if you ask me, I would say 24/7, this is the time that everybody needs to be vigilant, whether it's at night or during the day.
Okay, what are some of the precautionary measures that one can take? Because we've seen incidents of fire in the petrol stations, we've seen in marketplaces, we've seen in the farms. So what are the precautionary measures that one can take in these places, even in our private homes, to prevent fire outbreak?
Okay, I'll start from the private homes. More than 70% of the fire incidents we have in the homes start from either the kitchen or electric fire. So it's either because there's an unattended cooking ongoing, or appliances are not in use and are on when nobody's at home, or electric spark, maybe because we're using substandard wires, or the circuit is overloaded, you know, and all of that. So those are the possible areas we should be looking at in the homes. Now, for marketplaces, the Inspection, Investigation and Enforcement Unit of the service has come to establish that part of the challenge we have in marketplaces are illegal connections. And then sometimes you have, when you go to the backside of the market, it's not a very attractive place, so a lot of people don't even know about it. When you go to the backside of the market, you're going to get plenty of generators, you know, all trying to generate electricity at the same time. Sometimes you have fuels in kegs or diesels in gallons around that environment, you know, and then because of the illegal connection or multiple connection or tapping of electricity and all of that, those are causes of market fire. Now, when you talk about filling stations and all of
Petrol
that,
stations.
petrol stations and all of that, again, petrol by its nature is highly inflammable. So there's a minimum safety requirement that is required, you know, before you can have a filling station, you know, and of course they will tell you don't use your phone by the filling pump. The pump, don't light matches, and you know, and all of that. Those are also there. Then when you talk about public buildings, again, because of the traffic, you know, that are there, we'll expect minimum or some level of safety requirement, you know, just to ensure that you keep everything under control.
Now, I've seen a situation where, like recently we had a fire in one of the fuel stations. Even, I think in 2020, in Nasarawa, there was a fire at the fuel station. Like the earlier I asked you what time of the day one should be looking out for. And one of the reasons given was that the fuel offloading was done in the afternoon after a long ride. After the guy traveled a long distance, immediately he came, he started offloading, and there was fire. So how dangerous can this be?
Of course, fuel by its nature is very dangerous. It's written there, it's highly inflammable. Okay, and then when you come from a long distance, especially during the Harmattan, the weather is hot, the roads, you know, are not very friendly with these tankers, you know, and all of that. And then you expect a lot of shaking, you know, and all of that. That's not not a good time to start offloading. You know, it's better to keep it calm and cool. You'll agree with me, certain times when we have maybe spillage of fuel and all of that, our men turn out, and what do? We apply the foam compound, we try to blanket the area, and we try to cool, you know, the environment. Because of course, like I told you, the fire triangle is heat, fuel, and oxygen. So if you go to a filling station, in the height of the sun, you know, and you have fuel, which is the highly inflammable substance that you have brought, and there's heat, you know. Sometimes when you go to the filling station, you see some kind of invisible flames, you know, as the case may be. So when you have that fuel, heat, and then oxygen, I told you earlier, when these three come together, fire is inevitable. So yes, if the question is, should we do more of discharge now at night because the weather will be cool? I'll say yes. You know, however, whether at night or during the day, there's a minimum safety requirement that must be in place before you go into any form of discharge.
Now, what can you tell us about houses that have just one exit? You know, there are some houses, see them with iron doors at the, and the rest of them, no alternative exit door. So what can you tell us about such houses?
Well, first, I would say that if you go into any public buildings, okay, we professional firemen, by training, we must know our environment. So if I enter into a public building, when I came into this building, I had taken, you know, a cursory look of the environment. If something happens here, what happens to me? Where is their fire detector? Where is their smoke detector? Where is the extinguisher? I took a look, you know, just coming into the studio. Okay, so every building, whether public or private, should have an emergency exit. That is inevitable. But you see, we're in Nigeria, and people try to cut corners. We have the plans and examination division. What do we do in that division? Before you put up a building, you're supposed to bring your plans for us to examine and advise, give you an approval in principle that I keep saying basic safety requirement. And one of them is the emergency exit. Because the day that an emergency is going to happen, me and you don't know. And if it happens, there should be a sign showing that this is the emergency exit and this is the muster point. The essence or the reason for all of this is so that when something happens, people know where to use. So I will say that for public buildings, you know, it doesn't have our approval where there are no emergency exits. It's a prerequisite, you know, for a building that is going to have that user size, you know. For it to be approved and built, it must have an emergency exit.
Okay, so it's time for a short break now, but don't go away. We'll be back with the discussion. Please stay with us.
This is NTA News 24 broadcasting from Abuja. You can watch us anywhere, anytime on the following platforms.
Start Times Channel 101, Freak TV Channel 703, GSTV Channel 419, and Go TV Channel 46.
For more information, log on to our website www.nta.ng or join us on our social media handles, Facebook at NTA News 24.
For comments, suggestions and inquiries, send an email to news24@nta.gov.ng or call us on the following numbers.
NTA News 24.
News and more news.
Welcome back. This is Nigeria Today, and we are discussing fire prevention during Harmattan. And my guest is still with me, National Public Relations Officer, Federal Fire Service, Paul Abraham. Now, before we went on break, you talked about so many precautionary measures we can take, but now, you know, fire is used to cook. Definitely, we don't want to get cooked in the process. Yeah. So what if you find yourself in the middle of a fire outbreak? What do you do?
Well, basically, I would say that it's very difficult whenever there is a fire incident for people to be calm and cool. You know, we understand that, and so when we train people or enlighten them, we try to give them those backgrounds. But most importantly, you will agree with me that fire, except it's a bomb or an explosion, fire always have an incipient stage. That is when it's just starting. Okay, so if it's an electric fire, put out your cutout. Okay, you see smoke around your socket, or you know, around an appliance in the house and all of that. What do? You simply go and put off you're cut out. Okay? Why? Why are you doing that? You're cutting the supply of what is triggering the fire. That is for electric fire. Now, if it's in the kitchen, maybe for cooking, and all of that, we advise that people should have their fire blanket. Fire blanket is an equipment. It's actually a blanket, but of course it's scientifically built, you understand, to cut out the fire triangle. Remember, oxygen, heat, and fuel will generate fire. Now, if you cut any of these elements out, fire will go out. So if there's a fire incident in the kitchen, maybe in the pot or around the stove or whatever, just cover it with your fire blanket. Okay, it has ability to resist being burned, but it will starve the fire of oxygen. So once oxygen doesn't go into that fire anymore, what happens? It has cut out one of the elements and fire will go out. So it will just be left with heat and fuel, but oxygen won't go in anymore. So that's the essence of the fire blanket. Okay, so that's another thing you can do. Again, the extinguishers. When you want to use an extinguisher, most Nigerians, you have your extinguisher, you have your pin, you have your nozzle, and so when fire is at the incipient stage where you can use an extinguisher, what do? Just remember the acronym PASS, PASS, okay, which is pull out the pin, aim at the base of the fire. Now, fire has a source, fire has a base, okay? Most people who are not expert may not understand that you don't fight flames. You can fight flames, fight smoke, and not fight fire because it's coming from somewhere. That is the source, that is the base of the fire, okay? So when you pull out the pin and you're holding onto the nozzle, you hold the nozzle, you pull out the pin. What do? You aim, that's the A, at the base of the fire, and then you squeeze the nozzle, and then you sweep from left to right, right to left. That's how you can use the extinguisher to put out fire. But remember, that is when fire is at the incipient stage. And of course, for first aid firefighting equipment like your smoke detector, your fire alarm system, and the rest of them, the essence of this equipment is that it can trigger once the smoke level in a particular room or the fire level in a particular room has hit a limit, and it triggers the alarm system. Now, when fire is beyond the incipient stage, we don't encourage that people confront it. Why?
So what do you do?
At that point, you exit the building. Yes, at that point, you exit the building. And that's why we're talking about emergency exit. We're talking about muster points, and then you call the service. Either you call the Federal Fire Service or you call an emergency number at that point, and then we can, come. You exit from the building as quickly as you can.
Okay. Now, you've talked so much about, what to do when there's fire, precautionary measures to take. But is there any kind of sensitization, any campaign, to prevent fire outbreak that your service is doing right now, or before even the Harmattan?
Yes, before the Harmattan, during the Harmattan, and after the Harmattan. Sensitization, I think it's ongoing. Remember that part of our mandate of the Federal Fire Service is prevention, mitigation, control, and firefighting. So we don't jump into firefighting. We start by preventing. We start by mitigating, control, and then firefighting. Now, when the President Controller General came on board, part of his agenda, which he read to the service and to the general public, is that he was going to expend a lot of resources on prevention. In his words, Engineer Jaji Abdulganiyu said, prevention is cheaper, is easier, is safer than firefighting. It's easier, it's cheaper, okay, it's safer than firefighting. Okay, so as to the programs that we're doing, okay, right now we are in partnership with several stakeholders, market association, women leaders, religious association, secondary and primary education board across the country. Why are we doing this? We're doing this so that we build enough traction We go out there and then we have people to talk to, you know, on firefighting, fire prevention, fire mitigation, fire control, and all of that, and give people a lot of awareness. So yeah, such a campaign is going on simultaneously across the country, and especially for the Harmattan, we have upped our campaign, and so our statistics is already showing a better result, because we're already expending so much to ensure that people become aware. Children, again, holidays are coming, children are on holiday, the Harmattan is here. That is why we're going to the primary and secondary schools.
What about the rural areas?
Of course, even the rural areas. I talked about traditional rulers, market leaders, women associations, you know, both in urban and rural areas, just to farmers, just to enlighten them. Because this is a time where people go into a lot of bush burning. We're discouraging that. We're talking to parents, we're talking to children, we're discouraging them on fireworks. Because with the festivity, there's going to be a lot of fireworks. You know, we don't talk punitive from the word go. We talk prevention. How can we cut down? Remember when I was talking to you about the statistics, I told you that more than 80% of fire incidents in Nigeria are avoidable. If we talk to people and people become aware, you know, and have a level of understanding of what they should do and what they ought not to do, then we can cut down on that number. So I can assure you that such a campaign, it's everywhere.
So how do you deal with the nonchalant attitude of people? Like, you know, in Nigeria, the average Nigerian believes in a reactionary approach to life instead of being proactive. They like to react instead of, you know, doing it, being proactive, like I said earlier. So how do you deal with such, you know, attitude? Even some persons, when they see people campaigning against fire, because we like this, that's what they call, they say we like fire brigade approach. So how do you deal with such attitude?
You see, people don't change in one day, but it's work in progress. So I can tell you that the response we get today is not the same response we used to get in the time past. And that is because there's a consistent and deliberate effort on the part of the service to enlighten the people. And quite frankly, I must be frank with you, whenever we go there and do the campaigns, talk to them, you know, they come out in clusters. People actually go home enlightened and say, oh, I didn't know. Okay, sometimes we do a demo for them. We tell you, okay, in the rural areas, if a fire should happen when you're trying to fry stuff, what do? More than 80% of the women will say they use the cover of their pot to cover the fry pan or whatever, you know, just to stop that fire. We said, yes. What you have done is that you have improvised a fire blanket. And what you have done is scientific. You're actually trying to cut that fire, starve it of oxygen. However, scientifically, we have an equipment which is called the fire blanket. Every woman should have one in her kitchen.
No, shortly before you go, what is the importance, or how important is the muster point in places or workplaces?
Yes, how important? Very, very important. Because if everybody in this place knows where the muster point is, once there's an emergency, that's where everybody is heading to.
So, and what is the muster point? Just explain briefly, because some persons don't even know what muster point is.
Muster point is where we gather in case of emergency, whether it's a building collapse or is fire or any form of related emergency, whether it's flood. Okay, there's a designated area that normally there's nothing there that can hurt you, just plain, and it's designated, so that when we are experts in fire and other emergency, when we arrive a scene, we look for the muster point. Okay, because that is where those who have been able to move there, you evacuate them, and then anybody you get, you're getting him or her to the muster point.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It is easier, cheaper, and safer to prevent fire than to fight fire. Well, it's time to go, but we'll not do that without thanking our guest, the Assistant Controller of Fire, National Public Relations Officer, Federal Fire Service, Paul Abraham. We do appreciate your insights.
It's my pleasure.
And to our viewer, thanks for being there and keeping tab with the program. every weekday by 7:30 p.m. in the evening on NTA News 24. And you can watch this and other episodes on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. Once again, thank you for being there. I am Eukaria Clinton. Goodbye.